Hi everyone, welcome to the TechGig webinar. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's webinar is Insights on SharePoint 2016. We expect the session to last for an hour with around 40 to 45 minutes for the presentation and the remaining 15 minutes for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I am Sabah, the moderator of this session, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest speakers, Abhishek Bhatt, Manager, Business Development, Microsoft Services, and Ravish Verma, Technical Architect, both from Trigent Software. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speakers. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thanks, Sabah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I know it's a Friday afternoon, but then bear with us for another hour. I'm sure it'll be a very useful and productive 1 hour that you guys spend on a Friday afternoon with us. My name is Abhishek, and yes, I'll be your co-host for this webinar on Insights on SharePoint 2016. We'd like to spend the next 40 odd minutes sharing a few insights on Microsoft SharePoint 2016 platform, some stunning new features and benefits, and followed by a short demo. Before we dive deeper into today's topic, I'd like to give you a short summary about Trigent Software. We are a mid-level Microsoft Gold certified software development company based out of Boston with a strong development backbone in Bangalore. We have successfully operated for over 20 years with a global revenue of over $30 million. We have built technology centers of excellence in SharePoint, Office 365, Yammer, Windows Azure, and mobile. Our journey with Microsoft dates back to early 2000. And over the last decade, we have executed over 100 successful SharePoint enterprise deployments with an in-house competency of more than 100 plus Microsoft certified consultants. We at Trigent offer an array of services from quick start and planning programs involving assessment and advisory-based consulting to design and architecting a SharePoint farm to complete end-to-end implementations, migration services, and development services both on the on-premise as well as on the cloud. Today, we support and maintain several large SharePoint installations for many of our customers. Here's a representative list of our customers. The list includes some Fortune 100 companies, mid-size, and even startups across business verticals, from ISVs, independent software vendors, to enterprises in banking and insurance, finance, mortgage, credit lending, e-retail, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. That's me on the right. As I've already introduced myself, Abhishek Bhatt. I'm the Manager of Business Development with the Microsoft practice here at Trigent. I come with about a decade of experience in technology consulting. And my colleague Ravish is a Senior SharePoint Consultant with Trigent.
Hello everybody, thanks for joining the webinar. I'm Ravish Verma, and it's a pleasure to be presenting at this webinar on SharePoint 2016. I work as SharePoint Architect. And I have been working on SharePoint since its very existence. We'll see that SharePoint 2016 is similar to SharePoint Online in many ways. However, this new SharePoint 2016 version offers several improvements, especially on the mobile technology front. So let's dive into the webinar, and along the course of this webinar, we will see several demos on SharePoint 2016.
Thanks, Ravish. So the agenda for this webinar is to give you an overview of SharePoint, and in particular the latest offerings in 2016. We'll delve deeper on some of the unique features 2016 has to offer and potential benefits to businesses and developers. This will be followed by a live demo and some few key takeaway points, and finally the Q&A section. At this point, I'd like to call upon Ravish to take over.
Thank you, Abhishek. So before getting into the SharePoint 2016 details, so let's start with the evolution of SharePoint. Let us look at the evolution of SharePoint from a decade ago. SharePoint primarily started as a document management system and added sites, portals, search, BI, and etc. A common management layer was added to provide the control as well. Then SharePoint became a platform on which solutions can be built. The same core elements experiences management and extensibility was followed in other newer products too. For example, Link, Exchange, and Office 365. So SharePoint 2016 is designed as the most secure, reliable, scalable update, bringing innovations from the Office 365 and making the hybrid easier for migration when the customers or the users are ready for it. So that was the detail about the evolution of SharePoint. Let's talk about the release history and roadmap. So SharePoint Portal Server came in 2001 and 2003. Those were focused mostly on intranet collaboration and portals. Even during these days, Microsoft provided SharePoint as managed services. Then in March 2007, the focus shifted more towards enterprise features like document sets, record centers, e-discovery, and etc. These versions of the products were also provided via Microsoft Online Services. And in SharePoint 2013, the focus was cloud and enterprise solution. And then on-prem 2013 defined the start of the Office 365. And Microsoft took the Office 365 as the base for the SharePoint 2016. So we'll see the SharePoint 2016 vision and value as with respect to improved user experience, cloud-inspired infrastructure, and people-centric compliance. So SharePoint 2016 will be focused on delivering value to the customers as part of their on-prem deployments, while at the same time making it easier to take advantage of cloud innovations, which through the hybrid environments with SharePoint Server 2016 and Office 365. As far as improved user experiences are concerned, SharePoint Server 2016 will provide improved mobile access to content, people, and applications, along with the touch-based experiences across devices and screen sizes. It will make file storage and document collaboration more people-centric. And it will enable improved user experience and capabilities derived from the innovations in Office 365. That will be available either as part of your on-prem deployment or through a hybrid implementation of SharePoint Server 2016 and Office 365. For example, users will be able to quickly discover contextually relevant information and data that is stored across both on-prem and cloud environments powered by Office Graph and Delve. Cloud-inspired infrastructure is concerned, so in that case, SharePoint 2016 is the first on-premises server release representative of Microsoft experience running SharePoint at a scale in Office 365 or SharePoint Online. As far as compliance and reporting concerned, SharePoint Server 2016 will provide a broad array of features and capabilities designed to make certain that sensitive information remains protected with investments in data loss prevention, primarily known as DLP. New scenarios to enable data encryption. We'll see in the coming slides, like the encryption with SMTP servers, and compliance tools that span on premises servers and Office 365, while providing a balance between enabling the user self-service and ensuring content usage adhere to the corporate policies. Convergence. When we talk about the convergence, we actually deal with from where the idea came about SharePoint 2016. So SharePoint 2016 is truly built from the SharePoint Online Office 365 versions of the product. Many of the Office 365 features have made way into SharePoint 2016 to deliver the same value to on-premises customers. That is the base of building the SharePoint Server 2016. Let's talk what is deprecated. So as far as features which will be deprecated, that will be no more SharePoint Foundation version will be available as far as SharePoint 2016 is concerned. FIM will not be the SID product with SharePoint Server 2016. There will be a separate installation for that. No standard installation, so you may have the single server installation and the different server roles you can assign using the MinRole. We'll see that in the later slides. And the Power Apps is expected to be the replacement of InfoPath forms. However, they're not going to end the support for InfoPath forms. There'll be support for backward compatibility and no more access services. So even they'll be deprecating the access services. There are some of the features we listed below, like trusted data providers, trusted file location, trusted data connection libraries, access services, Windows PowerShell commands, opening of Excel workbooks from SharePoint Central Administration side. Those will be deprecated. But as far as Excel services are concerned, there'll be some features will be available using the Office online server, that is known as the Office web app servers also, like viewing and editing Excel workbooks in a browser, Excel web access required for SharePoint, and ODC file support no longer requires data collection libraries. Programmability features such as JavaScript object model, user-defined function assemblies, SOAP and REST protocols. So all these things will be supported, even though they have decided to deprecate the Excel services from the SharePoint 2016. Let's talk about the benefits and features by role. So we'll first take from the end user perspective. So from end user perspective, SharePoint 2016 will provide improved mobile access to content, people and applications along with the touch-based experience across devices and screens. It will make file storage and document collaboration more people-centric. For example, users will be able to quickly discover contextually relevant information and data that is stored across both on-premises and cloud environments powered by Office, Graph, and Delve. We'll see that the hybrid search will also be a part of the SharePoint 2016 deployment. So through that also user experience will improve. Support for ODF document, open document format. So you can upload the document in any format in SharePoint. And file name length and other characters restrictions are being removed. So you can give any sort of file name. You can give any length to your file name, any document you are uploading into the SharePoint. New user profile page to include content from the Delve and Office Graph API. So you'll have the information about the other users as well right in front of you. Updated blogging experience, which will include the drag and drop features for adding images to posts. So these are some from few end users enhancements which will be there in the SharePoint 2016. We'll see now with respect to the IT professionals, what are the enhancements or the improvements Microsoft has done or that will be delivered with the SharePoint 2016. So from an IT professional perspective or from an infrastructure professional perspective, I would say patching is entirely different in SharePoint 2016 as opposed to SharePoint 2013. So in the past, if we'll talk about the SharePoint 2013, and SharePoint update was defined by number of quick fix or I would say the hot fixes, and which was represented number of different MSIs and MSPs. So for general SharePoint update in SharePoint 2013, by default, you can expect about 37 MSI and MSPs as part of an update or in a hotfix. Part of hotfix. Then in addition to that, about 18 more on each individual language pack installed in each server. So if you have multiple language pack installed on each server, for against each language pack, you need to install 18 more updates as well. So if you think about number of patches contained in an update, just out of the box, you are going to get 37. As soon as you have language packs, you will get another 18 more. So for each language pack, 18 more. And if there are 10 language packs, so total 180 MSI and MSPs in addition to that 37. That is let down by default. But in SharePoint 2016, Microsoft is doing a number of things regard to patching to minimize the size of the patch and its footprints. How? By reducing the number of MSIs and MSP down to 2 MSI and MSP per patch. In addition to that, 1 per language pack. So initially it was 37. So they have reduced down into 2 MSIs and MSP per pack and 1 per language pack. So now if you count, so that is from 18 to 1 and from 37 down to 4. What that means for an IT professional perspective, first, patch will be smaller, which leads to optimized performance, and second, it executes faster with zero downtime. However, please make note that for the zero downtime patching, redundant servers will be required. In Office 365, Microsoft is able to maintain 99.9% SLA. And in SharePoint 2016, on-premises releases, they are going to leverage the same design what they are following for the Office 365. So you can install your patches now in the middle of the day, completely transparent to your users, because all of the Microsoft updates will run online. In the past, all updates were running offline, which requires constantly starting and stopping services, which resulted in downtime in your SharePoint farm actually. Now with this improvement, you don't need to have a downtime if you have the redundant servers available in your farm. Again, with respect to IT professionals, this slide talk about the MinRole, which I will try to demonstrate as well, and the services, and which is the new feature introduced in SharePoint 2016. So from an IT professional perspective, you can configure a server in the farm with a dedicated role. So there are these are the different roles. You can see web front-end application specialized load and distributed cache. So web front-end server role actually will service individual requests. That will be to optimize for low latency and in order to provide the responsiveness for users, for end users actually. The application server role is for backend job or the request triggered by the backend job, by another service such as search. Service assigned for this role are optimized for high throughput. So the way Microsoft think about this particular role is web front end to optimize for latency, the application server optimized for high throughput. And the specialized load role, if you want to isolate a server from other services, like if you want to have custom third-party applications or custom services applications running on, then you can assign that role as a specialized load role. And then the distributed cache role. So those are effectively load balancing end users requests for those various services that require cache, such as social feeds, logging token cache, and last modified time cache. So through these levels of optimization, a SharePoint farm can actually respond very quickly to end user requests, because SharePoint is intelligent enough to understand how to actually manage the requests end to end, as opposed to in the old environment in SharePoint 2013, wherein the request used to traverse to the topology to process the end user requests. So from an developer perspective, SharePoint 2016 will provide the extensibility of app launcher. Also, APIs which were available in SharePoint Online will be available in SharePoint 2016 on-prem to extend and customize the SharePoint 2016. Solution package build can be used in both SharePoint 2016 on-prem versions and SharePoint Online version. However, Microsoft is going to end the support of SharePoint Designer for SharePoint 2016. That means developers will no longer be able to use SharePoint Designer in SharePoint 2016, but all these are liable to change, as SharePoint Designer is the integral customization tool for as far as SharePoint is concerned. So this is in the news, but hopefully that shouldn't be stopped. The usage of SharePoint Designer will not be stopped. Let's just see the SharePoint 2016 highlights, and highlights in terms of major benefits with respect to management of platform, reliability, performance, and scalability, analytics, where we will see insights and data, cloud experience. So first we'll talk about the management of platform. So in the management of platform, we'll talk about the hardware requirements. From hardware requirement perspective, it remains 64-bit application. Microsoft recommends anywhere between 16 to 24 GB of memory for single server installation, or for farm installation anywhere from 12 to 16 GB. From a processing perspective, compute doesn't necessarily have changed as opposed to what you have seen with SharePoint 2013. So single quad-core processor should be enough to facilitate what you need with SharePoint 2016. On database side, Microsoft will support 64-bit edition of SQL Server 2014 along with Service Pack 1, and or 64-bit SQL Server vNext. So vNext is something like the SQL Server 2016 and higher versions. As far as from the prerequisite perspective, Microsoft has made a number of different changes. Microsoft will support Windows Server 2012 R2 and Windows Server 10 with SharePoint 2016. It will require the Windows Management Framework 3.0, which provides support for PowerShell 3.0. It will require .NET Framework 4.5.2 if you are installing on Windows Server 2012 R2. And if you are running on Windows Server 10, it will require .NET Framework 4.5.6. Microsoft will continue to support Windows Server App Fabric, which provides in-memory distributed caching for a number of different features, such as caching for social feeds, caching for login token, or last modified time cache. So App Fabric remains the component of SharePoint 2016. However, in the last year in the April, Windows Server team from Microsoft announced that the support for App Fabric from this year will be ended. But Microsoft will continue to support with 2016 as far as App Fabric is concerned. Microsoft do have some new data loss prevention features and information protection controls building into the SharePoint 2016. Some of them will be offered through hybrid experience, and hence it will be also required that the information protection and control client should be installed. And at the last, the WCF data services to enable the data creation and consumption of data services. That is particularly important when you think about data connectivity scenario by virtue of BCS or a new app scenarios that requires identity. From the upgrade and migration, this is an important aspect when a new version is released from Microsoft as far as SharePoint is concerned. From an upgrade perspective, you have a number of different ways. You can upgrade to SharePoint 2016. One is migration to 2016 and one is upgrade to 2016. From an upgrade perspective, Microsoft will support upgrade from 2013 to 2016. Microsoft actually spent some time looking forward what they call it as N-2 upgrade, which is nothing but an attempt to allow the direct upgrade from 2010 to 2016. But since there is dramatically architectural changes into the 2010 and the SharePoint 2016, so they have brought the 2013 as the middle path for the upgrade and the migration perspective. So you can actually think of SharePoint 2013 as the the genesis block for future versions of SharePoint, much like the Windows has universal kernel that defines each release. SharePoint 2013 you can almost think of as a kernel for future versions of SharePoint, and any migration or upgrade will be the base for will be based on the SharePoint 2013. As we know that, I mean, as I said that from an architectural perspective, there is a parity between these releases. So Microsoft has not changed the service application architecture to any extent. So you still have the same shared service architecture you can expect, and you have seen in SharePoint 2013, but with respect to SharePoint 2010, it has changed dramatically. So when you are upgrading to SharePoint 2016, any 14.5 mode site collection need to be brought forward to 15 mode if you are running the backward compatible site collection in SharePoint 2013. Effectively running them in SharePoint 2010 mode. You have to bring those site collection forward to SharePoint 2013 mode before you can upgrade them to the SharePoint 2016 mode. And that's why the Microsoft has kept this 2013 as the middleware for any upgrade to SharePoint 2016. Other than that, it's database attach and data as process, which was a traditional way to upgrade and migrate content, will be supported. On identity or authentication, Microsoft has made a few minor changes as well. Now, SAML authentication becomes the first-class citizen in SharePoint 2016. In SharePoint 2013, Microsoft offered multiple authentication providers like Windows, claims, forms-based authentication, SAML claims, and WS-Fed. The reason why SharePoint had all these providers was all about backward compatibility, and in SharePoint 2016, that will be normalized on OAuth and SAML with WS-Fed. So you can think about SAML authentication as the first-class citizen for authentication in SharePoint 2016. Microsoft chose SAML authentication as the default for SharePoint 2016 because authentication provider is actually claims ready, or you can say that it's a cloud ready. SAML claims-based suits the insertion because it enables you to make the cloud more transparent, particularly from an app development perspective and migration perspective. A question comes, what about Windows identity over SAML claims? So a lot of people ask Microsoft about Windows authentication, since Microsoft is making SAML authentication as the default authentication. That remains supported as well, like Windows authentication and all. So Microsoft is not making any change to the Windows identity over SAML claims. So although SharePoint forward-looking to SAML claims perspective, Microsoft is going to support some of the older identities as well. The main idea moving forward to the SAML authentication is to move away from domain-based authentication to the cloud-based authentication. So you can think about concept and technologies which is OAuth or OpenID, which is leading us forward in the industry nowadays. There will be apps that still rely on Windows identity, and SharePoint will still retrieve the Windows identity from SAML for those federated users. Microsoft is going to support older authentication models, but they really want to move forward into the world of cloud-based identity. And in SharePoint 2013 and in SharePoint 2010, one of the things you always had to do is to leverage port 80 for any communication. So now Microsoft will support STAR TLS connection encryption. The reason why Microsoft is doing, if you think about older version of SharePoint, when you are sending email, all of them were unencrypted. And now with SharePoint 2016, now you can run on non-default ports, like, if you are configuring the SMTP server, that needs not to be a default port like port 25. You can configure any port you want to, or you can make it a secure port as well for communication. So that non-default ports which will support actually the encrypted communication between SharePoint and messaging services. The great part about that is encryption logic, and you can leverage non-default ports, as I said, and not when you will be leveraging with the SharePoint 2016, and this thing has come forward as well. I mean, by the Microsoft to keeping the interest of the security in mind. So there is no fallback unless encryption is available. You won't be able to fall back to a non-encrypted connection. The key message is you can now run on non-default ports, and you can also configure the same through central administration or through PowerShell. So this is the new extensibility Microsoft has provided. You can actually configure the messaging services or the communication between two different servers through different ports, not on the default ports. Let's talk about the reliability, performance, and scalability. From performance and reliability perspective, Microsoft has made a number of changes as well. Microsoft is doing a number of different things from roles perspective. Microsoft has implemented a new way to think about topology by creating a new solution called MinRole. From MinRole perspective, you can also use PSConfig through Windows command line or through Windows PowerShell. Many SharePoint customers or the users use the Windows PowerShell to programmatically complete the installation. They don't leverage the wizard itself. For them, Microsoft has given new override in the PowerShell command. So effectively, users can now specify a new parameter called isLocalServerRole, and then you specify what that role is when they'll be configuring the server farm with the new feature introduced, the MinRole. From role enforcement and health perspective, SharePoint remains what we have defined it to be. So if you have selected web server role, what do Microsoft do to ensure it remains a web server? It will automatically provision the service applications needed for web server role, and also Microsoft had built a health analyzer in order to detect any deviation away from what we have defined that role to be. There are some changes with respect to distributed cache. Now with the distributed cache, you can actually move up to 4.9 SLAs. The reason is because Microsoft introduced a new feature which switches of NTLM authentication between SharePoint and the cache cluster. Instead, it's relying on the encryption of cache before transport. So basically what all that means is Microsoft do a transformational activity to resolve the NTLM authentication problem that was there between the SharePoint and the cache cluster, and that has caused a lot of downtime in distributed cache. Now that goes away because of the new feature introduced, and that has resolved that issue. Now it is relatively more performance centric and more reliable, and you can actually offer 4.9 availability from a distributed cache perspective. But not only that, in addition, you can also support more connections as well. From upload and download perspective, a new protocol bit has been introduced. In SharePoint 2010, Microsoft introduced a protocol called as the Cobalt protocol. The Cobalt protocol is a code name for Microsoft File Synchronization over HTTP or FSS HTTP. And that particular protocol was designed to mitigate latency between a client and a web server. So, for example, when a user uploads a document, it will implement that Cobalt protocol. So, user would request the document from SharePoint. SharePoint would subsequently go to SQL Server to retrieve the document. The document then be presented to end user by virtue of the client or the browser. In SharePoint 2013, Microsoft further evolved file synchronization by introducing threaded storage. Threaded storage then take delta from the front end and to the back end, and mitigated the performance challenge with SharePoint 2013. But in SharePoint 2016, Microsoft is moving away from file synchronization from SOAP over HTTP and taking a dependency on more proprietary protocol for upload and download chunking to improve the performance leveraging a new protocol that is BITS, Background Intelligence Transfer Service. Now that's going to be the new methodology that Microsoft will use to accommodate file upload and download chunking perspective. Microsoft also introduced fast site creation. You can think about a way a site is created today when you create a site collection for your customers and for your users. Many organizations like to programmatically provision those particular site collections either through PowerShell or through a custom interface provided because an end user generally are not enabled to access central admin or self-service site creation. One of the challenges in SharePoint is site creation is heavy operation. How? Because every time when we create a site, there are a number of different things we have to do. One, we have to work through all of the provisioning logic, then all of the feature activation, and that results into a site collection. Office 365 site collection is fairly rapid and small operation. If we'll talk about the SharePoint Online, the reason is what Microsoft does is during a site creation, Microsoft copies site collection using site collection copy method and at the content database level. So what that means is you can think of a base site collection such as a team site template being a template itself within the database. So one row is already kept in the as a template in the database, and when a user requests a site for provisioning, Microsoft simply implement a copy command at the database level to move that template to over. So a new row will be automatically created in the database, and new site will be created by passing all of the feature activation because of the master copy and has all those implemented already. So that means we have a master copy as the site collection that becomes as the foundation for any subsequent site collection creation, and none of the feature activation process occurs as part of the site creation. So you can have very rapidly enabled fast site creation, and same design will be implemented in SharePoint 2016. So let's see about the demo of the MinRole provisioning. What I have done is while installation of the SharePoint 2016. I ran through the configuration wizard, and as of the older versions like 2010 and 2013, we get this configuration wizard. So the first thing is that it will welcome you to the SharePoint products and technology, and the moment you click on the next button, so a new screen will come, and in the new screen you'll have the option either you can create a new server farm or you can connect to an existing farm. So while the installation, I had selected the create a new server farm. And then it gave me the interface wherein I need to provide the database server name where the configuration database will be created, and I need to furnish the credentials so that it can go back and connect to the database and create the configuration database. And here is the passphrase interface wherein this will be required if you are first time if you are installed, then also it will be required. And if you are connecting to an existing farm, that time to connect to any server into the existing farm, you need to provide this passphrase so that the system can understand that you are actually trying to add it to an existing farm. And here comes the MinRole feature, which has been introduced in SharePoint 2016. So here you can see that it actually gives you an interface to specify the server roles, and front-end servers, application server, distributed cache, search, and custom, or either you can have the single server farm. So yeah, the kind of role you will provide to the server, accordingly those service applications will be automatically created in that server, and the installation of the farm will be completed. So these things have been done by the Microsoft in order to actually facilitate or I can say the improve performance and the reliability. Let's talk about the boundaries and limitations which have been improved. So from content database sizing perspective, they have not yet defined, like Microsoft has not yet defined exactly what that would be, but they are likely to support content which scale in terabytes as opposed to the gigabytes. And from a site collection for content database perspective, it will be 5 times more, which you can see in SharePoint 2013. So it was around 200. So now that means in SharePoint 2016 you can create 100,000 site collections for content database, and they are also increasing the list threshold well beyond 5,000 items as well. Max file size, you can actually now upload 10 gigabytes of file size to SharePoint 2016, so you are no longer restricted to 2 gigabytes. And from the index items perspective, search increases 2 times. So you can index over 500 million items. From user profile perspective, Microsoft is no longer baking user profile service into SharePoint. The user profile service actually provided in a way that the only option you have available is to install Active Directory synchronization. And so for unidirectional import scenarios, Microsoft will leverage Active Directory synchronization as part of the SharePoint 2016. Or you would select external replication by virtue of installing a forefront identity manager on a separate machine. So as I talked about it in the past, that FIM will be a separate installation. So in the past SharePoint 2013, Microsoft used to build a forefront identity manager in the product to enable bidirectional synchronization. And now this Microsoft no longer building in the SharePoint. Microsoft actually enabling you to install on a completely separate server and then incorporate with SharePoint, and also actually the communication will be established with the SharePoint, and so that this will actually improve the reliability of the user profile services. From a project server perspective, Microsoft is consolidating project server databases into the SharePoint content database. So that's the substantial change as well. That doesn't mean with the SharePoint 2016, Microsoft will give project server for free. You still have to license project server as well. So this will be the separate license as far as project server is concerned. There's something new feature called durable links has been introduced. So Microsoft, they are trying to make the sharing as a very truly frictionless experience. In an earlier version of SharePoint, if you shared a file and rename the file or move the file from one site collection to another site collection, the link was broken. Durable links will resolve that issue because it's all the resource-based URL. In durable links, a system gets a Cobalt endpoint and for getting the file for client, and the URL is to that also contains site ID and the doc ID. So it's all about resource endpoint. So it actually contains the content ID and the site ID. So when you upload a file and you would like to share it, it increases a link. It creates a link. That link has resource ID embedded within it, and that identifies that particular file and has affinity to that file. And that affinity is actually regardless of that file location has been changed or renamed. And hence, if you share a file to another user and you move the file from one site collection to another, the link provided will still work. There's an update on this that durable links isn't necessarily a SharePoint 2016 new feature, but you actually need to have Office Online Server that is previously known as the Office Web Apps Server. That we typically have this when installing SharePoint on premises, so customers should benefit from durable links anyway. It works as described, meaning your URL to document will always work, and that's actually a great news. Let's talk about the analytics insights, about the data and all. Microsoft decided to have the insights about how users are leveraging SharePoint. So how frequently do users run into 404 error when they're accessing a SharePoint site or accessing a document or document library? How fast are those requests on a general nature? How much latency they're experiencing? Which site has greater latency than other sites? Which document are more frequent accessed? So Microsoft is doing some more telemetry with SharePoint 2016. So this is one of those things Microsoft is looking at right now. They have introduced a new, enhanced usage database that they use for telemetry, and then there's a new API as well that is called a SharePoint Logging API or Slappy. And Microsoft uses Slappy to figure out how users are using SharePoint, so they can better provide a better responsive environment and better features as well. So with the Slappy, Microsoft will be able to create dashboard and will be able to provide data based on daily usage, weekly usage, uses the operating system, and also by browsers. As far as cloud experience concerned, so from a cloud, from a compliance perspective, Microsoft is doing a number of different things in compliance, explicitly designed for SharePoint 2016. An example of this is the concept of classification ID. So if I'll give you an example, many compliance tools, when you try to discover something for example, credit card, it's a simple regular expression, and it's discovering a 16-digit number. 16-digit number, in terms of 4-digit grouping. So classification ID is nothing but an easy way to think about complex query based on one complex predicate. From a classification ID perspective, we have called as credit card classification ID, and there's a template also defined for that, and it's a complex predicate. In that, Microsoft look for corroborative evidence as well. So you're looking for a 4-digit grouping numbers with a total 16 digit, but in addition to that, Microsoft look for something that corroborates that fact that it may be a credit card number. So they look for something like expression ID, which is actually defined for a credit card number. So you can think of it as adding more information to a particular query with a discovery perspective. And there'll be about 51 out-of-the-box classification IDs in SharePoint 2016. Inside Office 365, you are able to do a number of things like document fingerprinting, icon-level encryptions. So Microsoft thought, why not bring those capabilities back to our on-prem customers through hybrid connectivity. A new hybrid system will enable you to leverage this, but includes on-prem content and online content as well. Let's talk about a little bit about the search. So Cloud Search Service application will be shipped into the SharePoint 2016, which enables you to leverage the power of Office Graph with your on-prem content. So the way this particular scenario works, there will be a service application that will be built natively in SharePoint 2016, and that unifies your search index in the cloud and then enables you to search across, retrieving the data blended with on-premises and online content. And in addition to that, it brings the power of Delve and Office Graph as well. And Office Graph, as I said, that is a framework and platform that provides data based on the user identity and user activity. In other cloud experiences, one of the change you can notice is open document format, as I talked about in the previous slides in SharePoint 2016. So you can create new files in the document library and save them as the open document format by creating an ODF as a template. And you can edit the document of any program of your choice. So that's new to SharePoint 2016. You can subscribe to cloud capabilities like Azure Active Directory, RMS to leverage per item encryption for SharePoint environment on premises as well as SharePoint Online. This is some of the Microsoft capabilities in cloud, maintaining your content on premises. And SharePoint app model will be available in hybrid setup with SharePoint 2016. Let's see a demo of the installed SharePoint 2016 environment. So I'll just come out of my presentation and I will log into the server where I have installed my SharePoint 2016. Okay. So here you can see this is the central administration site for the SharePoint 2016, and the first thing you can notice is the app launcher that is newly introduced. And apart from this, if I talk about the hybrid scenario, if I click on the Office 365, so Microsoft has enabled Office 365 integration in terms of hybrid scenario, and which can be actually configured using SharePoint 2016 on-premises central administration site. So this link has been given over here so that you can configure some of the cloud capabilities. What is there in SharePoint Online, right from your on-prem interface. So here is the link, like configure hybrid OneDrive and site features. This will actually, here you can see, if I'll scroll down a little bit, select hybrid features. So you can have this, there are two ways using which you can do the hybrid integration. One is OneDrive and one other is OneDrive. So this is to actually bring down some of the capabilities from the online to the on-prem. Now I'll go to the system settings here, and I can show you the encryption which can actually be leveraged with respect to the SMTP server. So here you can actually have the secured socket layer configurations done, and if you can run it on any of the port. It need not be necessarily on port number 25 as it was there in the earlier versions of SharePoint. And again, if I'll go back to the system settings, so there are some options available over here. So if I'll go to the managed services in this form, so you can see based on the role which I have provided to this server while installing the SharePoint server in the environment. Based on that, some of the service applications has already been created. And it actually gives a new, altogether new interface wherein it says that which all the service applications running are in compliance or not, or you want to make that auto provision or not. So this is a new interface has been given in SharePoint 2016. Apart from this, again, if I go to the system settings, we have the convert server roles in the actually you can at any point of time, if you want to change the server roles, so you have this link available. So you can see as of now this is single server farm, but there are some other different roles which I can assign at any point of time I want to. Along with this, if I go to the service applications page, the project server inclusion is there. So I'll go to the managed service applications page. The interface is almost similar to the SharePoint 2013. And here you can see that the project service applications, so that you can actually embed the project server in SharePoint Server 2016 as well. And as far as the synchronization options are concerned, so I have created a service applications, user provided service application. And here if I go to the configuration synchronization settings, you can see this option was there in the older version, but in order to have an external identity, if you have the forefront identity manager, if you have installed, then you have this option to select, and then further you can configure it for the user profile service application. Apart from this, there is a new site template has also been introduced in SharePoint 2016, that is the Compliance Policy Center. And as we have already talked about, the role-based server farm configurations also you can do. And if I give you a demo of the site look and feel, so this is how it looks like, a new SharePoint site, team site in SharePoint 2016. It will have the app launcher. So as soon as you will start using the Office Online servers, and then the different Office or application or the apps will be getting added over here. Apart from that, you can see that any of the document library, they have the same interface. What is there is the Office Online or the SharePoint Online. The same replication they have done it over here. And the one last item which I would like to show you is the mobile view. If I'll go and I'm sorry, I'll just try to change the URL here so that I can show you how in the mobile view it will look like. So this is how it will look like. You can have the, as of now in this site there's no content, so it's coming as blank, but as soon as you will have some content, so it will be listed over here. And this is and at any point of time, you have this option available here also, that you can switch to the PC view, or you can go to the, you can sign out of the application. So this is what I'm having as far as demo is concerned. I'll now ask Abhishek to talk about the main takeaways. If you will be working with the, working with the SharePoint 2016.
Yeah, so thanks Avish. I think we have kind of overshot on the time, but here's a summary and a quick few takeaways, key takeaways. So SharePoint 2016 is a comprehensive solution for a better connected information workflow. Microsoft has actually optimized the 2016 platform to account for the way people actually work and make it more people-centric. The platform preserves structured processes, compliance, your IT investments. As a summary, SharePoint 2016 is an easy-to-manage, tightly integrated platform. I would now like to step back and request the attendees to pose your queries. Please use the tool in the control panel, question box, to do so.
Okay, so first question asked by Sumitra, that there is any course on SharePoint 2016. So definitely, I think you need to go through the TechNet website from Microsoft, and there you will find lots of resources about the SharePoint 2016. As far as classroom programs are concerned, or like any live video sessions, something like that. So Microsoft provide that kind of information as well. The second question has been asked by how database comes in role in SharePoint 2016. That is the question asked by Dhaval. So there'll be no change as far as databases are concerned. They will be exactly similar to the what was there in the SharePoint 2013 and or in the older versions of SharePoint. So as we know that SharePoint uses SQL database only for the storage purpose, and rest of the things like the retrieval or or displaying or anything. So that is the runtime activities, the internal process within the SharePoint engine. So there'll be no change as far as roles are concerned with respect to the database. So there one more question is like, will it work with Windows or with Linux as well? And that has been asked by Gaurav Saxena. So the answer to this question is, as of now, Microsoft has released it only for the Windows platform, and they will be, as soon as that will be several versions will be out in the market. You can use in the Linux machine as well as a virtual machine kind of thing. Another question asked by Srinivas B is on-premises SharePoint 2016 is complicated for deployment and implementation of intranet portal. I don't think so. That as far as customization or deployment is concerned, there'll be any issue in that. The methodology would go same. Actually, there's an extensibility. You can have the customization built, and you can use it both on-premises and in cloud as well. And intranet portal building up will not be a difficult task. Yes, they have provided. Microsoft has introduced actually some of the features like MinRole, wherein actually the server's roles will be assigned to the particular server, and they will actually be useful for the better reliability and performance perspective. Then one question asked by Sujat Ali Khan, how to get started on SharePoint framework. So if you want to start on SharePoint framework, as you know, that the SharePoint is built on top of .NET framework. So first you need to know about the .NET framework, and then you can start getting knowledge about, you can start referencing the technical materials available on Microsoft site, and then you can play around with that. Difference between SharePoint 2016 and SharePoint Online. So that this question has been asked by Amar Busti. So these are two different releases, definitely, but SharePoint Online is the base from where the concept has come out, and the Microsoft has come up with the SharePoint 2016. And if you talk about the differences, so yeah, there's in SharePoint Online you don't have the end-to-end control, but in on-premises SharePoint 2016, since the server will be in your control in your premises, right? So you will have the end-to-end control, and the customization and extensibility will be definitely differ when it comes to the SharePoint 2016 and SharePoint Online. One question has been asked by Selva Vasant, advantage of SharePoint over other content systems like EMC, Documentum, OpenText to share. So see, there are several other products available in the market, but definitely SharePoint provides several other different features, like it's not only with respect to the content management, there are several other features like social collaboration, external database connectivity, and these are the features which actually set aside keep SharePoint separate from other content management system. The other question is like, is there any layout change for document library in SharePoint 2016? Even items and ribbon options and menu options. Okay. See, what has been introduced in SharePoint 2016 is they have added the app launcher, but the ribbon, as far as the document library is concerned, there is no change in that. But yes, they have introduced some of the new feature. I mean, they have actually copied the features which is there in the document library. If you check in SharePoint Online, the same thing they have implemented in SharePoint 2016 environment as well, the on-premise release as well. So one question asked by Navneet Sharma, any new changes in 2016 workflow? No, there'll be no changes. The same workflow manager will work with respect to the SharePoint 2016 also. And you need to actually configure it, and then you can have the workflow or the business processes customized on top of that. There's one question asked by limitations of 2016 by Nishant Meher. So, this is still in the ongoing process. So, as the more and more information will be explored about the SharePoint 2016, and then the limitations will come out. Yeah, definitely some of the features which have been deprecated, and as Microsoft has talked about that they are going to actually stop the support of SharePoint Designer, so that you can consider it as a limitation. But yes, that is officially not out, that the SharePoint Designer support will be for SharePoint 2016. Any new template in Visual Studio for SharePoint 2016? That has been asked by Vishal Varsha, and this definitely Microsoft is going to release the new versions, or actually new versions of Visual Studio templates, and that you will see in the near future. Then the one question asked by B.S. Aditya, will SharePoint 2016 add to the cost in terms of number of servers? So yeah, I mean, we have seen in the past also, like the CAL licenses are required for, and if you are installing a number of servers, for each server licenses are required. So the licensing will go as it was in the past. There is no change in that. So we are done with the questions. So I'll hand it over to Abha.
Thanks a lot, Abhishek and Ravish, for this really empowering and insightful session today. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a great success. This webinar has been recorded, and the recording will soon be available on techgeek.com. Thank you everyone for joining us.